Think about the last time you really laughed. Not a polite smile, not a quiet exhale through the nose, a real laugh. The kind that takes over your breathing, makes your eyes water, collapses your posture, and leaves you, when it finally passes, slightly embarrassed by how completely it took control. Now try to remember what caused it. Chances are it wasn't a joke. It was almost certainly a moment with another person. Something said, something noticed, something shared. And then, before you made any conscious decision at all, the laughter was already happening. That gap between whatever occurred and your body's response is one of the most misunderstood things the human brain does. Because here is what almost nobody has ever considered. Laughter appears in every human culture ever recorded. It begins before language, before any infant understands what funny means. It is, by almost every measure, one of the most universal behaviors our species produces. And yet, nobody can fully explain why it exists. Why would evolution build a behavior this visible, this disruptive, this uncontrollable, and preserve it across millions of years? That question has a far stranger answer than anyone expected. And by the end of this documentary, you will never hear laughter the same way again. In the early 1990s, a neuroscientist named Robert Provine decided to study laughter the way a field biologist might study an animal in its natural habitat. He went to shopping malls. He walked sidewalks. He sat in university commons. And for months, he recorded laughter as it actually occurred. Not in laboratories, not in response to jokes told by researchers, but spontaneously, in the middle of real human life. What he found was so unexpected that it reoriented the entire field. More than 80% of the laughter he recorded did not follow anything that could be described as humorous. It followed sentences like, "I know, right?" Like, "Where have you been?" Like, "I'll see you later." Completely unremarkable statements. Nothing objectively funny. And yet, laughter. Provine's conclusion was quietly revolutionary. Laughter is not primarily a response to humor. It is a social signal, one of the brain's oldest tools for communicating something that has very little to do with jokes and everything to do with the invisible architecture of human connection. But that immediately raises a deeper question. If laughter isn't about humor, what is it actually doing? And to answer that, the story has to go back much further than language. Charles Darwin, in 1872, proposed that emotional expression was not simply cultural, it was biological, shaped by evolution, and shared across species. Decades later, primatologist Jan van Hooff provided striking evidence for what Darwin had intuited. He recorded and analyzed vocalizations in chimpanzees and gorillas during play, and found something remarkably familiar, a laughter-like behavior. Not identical to human laughter, more of a rhythmic panting than a ha-ha, but produced in strikingly similar contexts, safe physical interaction between individuals with close social bonds. Some ancestor of both humans and great apes was already producing laughter-like sounds millions of years before the first human walked the earth. Laughter is not a product of wit or intelligence or culture. It is far older than any of those things. And something in the human lineage transformed this ancient vocalization into something far more versatile, more controlled, and more socially complex. The question is what? And this is where everything changes. Modern neuroimaging research has revealed that genuine, spontaneous laughter, the kind that takes you over completely, does not originate in a single brain region. It emerges from a distributed system. Before you even realize you're about to laugh, multiple networks have already begun coordinating. The limbic system contributes emotional processing and reward signaling, the sense that this moment is positive, that this person is safe. The prefrontal cortex evaluates social context. Is this the right moment? What does this interaction mean? The motor cortex coordinates a remarkably complex physical performance. The rhythmic contraction of the diaphragm, the synchronized engagement of muscles across the chest and face, the partial closure of the vocal cords that shapes the sound itself. And underneath all of this, brainstem structures provide the rhythmic patterning, the ha-ha-ha, that gives human laughter its distinctive structure.
Every laugh your brain produces is an act of extraordinary coordination. Emotion, prediction, social evaluation, and motor execution happening simultaneously in fractions of a second, producing a behavior visible and audible from across a room. This is also why genuine laughter is so difficult to fake convincingly, and why every person alive instinctively knows the difference between a laugh that is real and one that isn't. The brain built a system too complex to counterfeit easily. But that raises a question the neuroscience alone cannot answer. Why would the brain build something this elaborate for a behavior that seems to serve no obvious survival function? That explanation seemed just out of reach, until one experiment made everyone look in a completely different direction. Here is something you have experienced, but probably never thought about scientifically. You cannot tickle yourself. Try it right now. Run your own fingers along your ribs. Nothing. But the same touch from another person, unexpected, uncontrolled, produces laughter, squirming, a response that feels simultaneously unbearable and impossible to stop. In the late 1990s, neuroscientists Sarah Blakemore and Christopher Frith at University College London discovered why. The cerebellum, involved in predicting the sensory consequences of your own movements, continuously models what your own touch will feel like before it arrives. Your own touch matches the prediction. Nothing happens. But another person's touch arrives without any prediction to match against. The timing, location, and pressure are unknown. The sensation lands in a gap the brain didn't prepare for. And that gap, unresolved sensory surprise in a context assessed as safe, is precisely what the tickle response requires. Laughter, at its most basic, is what the brain produces when something it didn't fully predict arrives in a situation it is determined poses no real threat. Surprise, filtered through safety. This is the midpoint of the story, and it's where the answer shifts into deeper territory. One influential framework in evolutionary laughter research proposes that the behavior evolved, at least in part, as a play signal, a vocalization that communicates to others, this interaction is not a threat. We are not in danger. In species that engage in rough physical play, chimpanzees, dogs, rats, and humans, signals that distinguish play from genuine aggression are critical. They allow intense contact without the misunderstanding that causes real conflict. Current evidence suggests that one important function of human laughter may be signaling safety and strengthening social bonds, a rapid, involuntary broadcast that communicates benign intent and invites continued engagement. This is one well-supported hypothesis among several. Researchers continue to investigate how social bonding, emotional regulation, and play signaling interact as functions of laughter, and no single explanation has been universally accepted.
What does appear consistently across the research is this: laughter changes the people who hear it. Neuroimaging studies have shown that simply hearing laughter activates regions of the premotor cortex in observers, areas involved in preparing for movement, even before any visible response occurs. The brain of the listener is already beginning to prepare to join in. Laughter spreads not because humor is contagious, it spreads because the social brain is built to mirror and participate in the signals of the people around it. And a signal this ancient, this honest, this difficult to fake is one the nearby nervous system finds almost impossible to ignore. But this raises one more question
that almost everyone will recognize personally. What about the laugh that arrives at exactly the wrong moment? At a funeral, during serious news, in a moment of genuine fear or humiliation. The laugh that appears not because anything is funny, but because something is profoundly, uncomfortably not funny. Research suggests that laughter can also serve as a mechanism of emotional regulation, a way the nervous system manages states of extremely high arousal that cannot easily be processed through language or deliberate thought. The oldest parts of your mind often speak before your newest thoughts arrive. The inappropriate laugh is not a failure of self-control. It is the nervous system reaching for the oldest regulation tool it has, slightly misjudging the context, but not misjudging the need. Babies laugh before they can speak. Around 3 to 4 months of age, before any word, before any understanding of irony or narrative or punchline, infants begin producing laughter in response to one thing above all others: a familiar person. Peekaboo, a known face appearing unexpectedly, physical play with a caregiver. The laughter arrives before language. And this is perhaps the most revealing thing about what laughter actually is. Whatever it is doing at its most fundamental level, it is not about humor in the way adults understand humor. The infant's laugh is not responding to wit. It is responding to the recognition of a safe other, the resolution of mild surprise within a context of known safety, the most basic social transaction a young nervous system knows how to make. The infant's laugh is saying, "I see you. I know you. We are safe together." And in some essential way, beneath all the irony and wit and timing that adult humor is built on top of it, laughter has never stopped saying that. In every culture, across every era, long before language could carry that message, laughter already could. Laughter is not primarily about what is funny. It is about who is present. The last time you really laughed, the moment that took over your breathing and wouldn't let go, your brain was not simply reacting to something amusing. It was reaching toward another person with one of the most ancient signals the human nervous system knows. Not a word, not a thought, not a decision. A laugh, carrying a message that predates language by millions of years. If laughter has been transmitting that signal on your behalf your entire life without you choosing it, planning it, or fully understanding it, what else has your brain been saying to the people around you that you've never noticed it say? If you're curious about how your mind and our world really works, subscribe to Why Decoded. Because everything has a reason. We just haven't decoded all of them yet.